In the bustling streets of a small town, where the morning sun barely touches the dusty roads, and the air smells of fresh vegetables, a young girl named Mira stands at her humble stall, selling everything from vibrant tomatoes to crisp cucumbers. Every day is a struggle, but it's the only way she knows how to survive. Her face, hidden behind a tangle of dark hair, carries the weight of countless untold stories. She may be poor, but there's a strength in her eyes, a fire that refuses to die. Mira dreams of a better life, one where she isn't just another face in the crowd. But for now, the harsh reality of her life is all she can hold on to. As the day wears on, her small stall becomes busier, the laughter of children echoing through the street, while the older folks barter for the last few carrots. But not everyone who passes by is there to shop. A group of thugs, rough around the edges, strut by with malicious grins, eyeing her like she's nothing more than a pawn in their game. One of them steps closer, his sneer unmistakable. Mira feels a pang of unease in her chest. She's dealt with their kind before. Rude comments, lingering stares, and the occasional threat. But today, it's different. Today, they seem determined to cross a line. Her heart races as one of the thugs knocks over a basket of tomatoes, sending them scattering across the dirt. Laughter follows. Mira bites her lip, trying to hold her ground. But inside, she's panicking. She's seen what happens when these men get bored. It's not the first time she's been harassed, but each time feels worse than the last. The market, usually a place of refuge, suddenly feels like a prison. She wants to shout, to run, to fight back, but fear has a tight grip on her. These men are dangerous. No one dares to stand up to them. Just as the situation begins to escalate, something happens. The sound of a car engine interrupts the chaos. It's a sleek black luxury car, rolling to a stop, right beside Mira's stall. The crowd parts. Murmurs ripple through the air. The man who steps out is nothing like the thugs who've been tormenting her. He's well-dressed, with sharp features, and an air of confidence that seems to radiate power. This is no ordinary man. He's the CEO of a major corporation, a name that everyone in the town knows, but no one has ever really seen in person. His presence alone is enough to silence the street. He walks over to Mira, his eyes never leaving the thugs. The tension in the air thickens, like everyone is holding their breath. Without saying a word, he stands between her and the men, a silent barrier that makes them hesitate. His calm demeanor contrasts with the aggression of the thugs, who now seem unsure of what to do. For a moment, the world feels suspended in time. Mira watches, her heart pounding in her chest, as the CEO faces down the bullies with nothing more than a steady gaze. The thugs, realizing they're no longer in control, back away, but not before one of them sneers at Mira, muttering something. Under his breath, the CEO turns to Mira, offering her a small, reassuring smile. It's not the kind of smile you expect from someone of his stature. It's genuine, warm even. "Are you all right?" he asks, his voice soft, yet firm. Mira, still in shock, nods silently, her eyes wide. She's not used to this kind of attention, let alone from someone like him. Before she can say anything else, he's already walking away, heading back toward his car. But then, as if remembering something, he pauses. Turning slightly, he looks at her once more. "You shouldn't have to face that alone," he says, his words lingering in the air. "Take care of yourself." With that, he climbs into his car and drives off, leaving Mira standing in the middle of the street, her mind racing. The thugs are gone, but the questions remain. Who was that man? Why did he step in? And what does it mean that he looked at her with such kindness, as if he truly cared? As the day winds down and the market empties, Mira finds herself replaying the encounter over and over again. She can't shake the image of him, the CEO who saved her from the thugs. The man who seemed to see her, not just as the poor girl selling vegetables, but as someone worthy of respect. It's a feeling she's not accustomed to, and it confuses her. But little does she know, that brief moment of intervention is only the beginning. The CEO, whose name is Arian, isn't one to forget easily. There's something about Mira that tugs at him, something that he can't explain. He finds himself thinking about her. The way she stood up for herself, the fire in her eyes even, when she was afraid. It's rare for someone in his world to take notice of a person like her. But he can't shake the feeling that there's more to her story than meets the eye. The next few days pass by in a blur for Mira. Life goes on as usual. The same routine, the same struggles. But something has changed. Arian's words echo in her mind. You shouldn't have to face that alone. It feels like a promise, an unspoken vow. But how could someone like him, someone so far removed from her world, keep such a promise? The question lingers, unanswered, as the world continues to turn. What will happen when their worlds collide again? Will Arian step back into her life? Or will this chance encounter be nothing more than a fleeting moment in time? Mira can only wonder, as the future seems uncertain. But one thing is for sure. This isn't the last time their paths will cross. And as the sun sets over the town, casting long shadows over the streets, Mira stands at her stall once more, her heart filled with anticipation. Days passed, and Mira's life, though still marked by the daily struggle of selling vegetables, had taken on a new layer. The events at the market had left her shaken, but also oddly hopeful. She hadn't been able to stop thinking about the CEO, Arian. His face kept appearing in her mind, his calm demeanor, his presence in the chaos, the way he had protected her without hesitation. For someone like him to step in, someone so wealthy, so powerful, it was a rare sight. And the way he had looked at her, as though she mattered. Mira didn't know if it was a dream or reality, but it made her wonder. Could someone like him really see beyond her simple life? Meanwhile, Arian was also unable to forget their brief encounter. Despite his busy schedule, which was filled with meetings and corporate decisions, Mira's image kept resurfacing in his thoughts. It wasn't just her beauty, though there was something about her quiet strength that intrigued him. It was the way she handled the thugs, the way she stood her ground even when she was clearly outnumbered. Arian was used to people bowing to him, to seeking his approval, but Mira didn't do that. She didn't need to. She was proud, independent, and real. It was rare to find someone like her in his world. A world of polished smiles and fake pleasantries. It wasn't just her resilience that caught his attention, but the vulnerability beneath it. There was so much more to her than met the eye, and Arian felt a strange pull to understand her. But life had a funny way of complicating things. Arian had responsibilities. He was the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company, and his life was filled with the weight of decisions that affected thousands of people. He couldn't just drop everything for a random girl from the market, no matter how deeply she affected him. And yet, as the days wore on, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of frustration. He had to know more about her, but how could he approach her without making it obvious? He couldn't simply walk into the market and strike up a conversation. That would look out of place, even for someone like him. Mira, on the other hand, was dealing with her own set of challenges. The market had always been her safe haven, the one place where she could earn enough to support herself and her aging mother. But the thugs' harassment had left her shaken, and their last encounter had only made things worse. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were going to come after her again, this time with even more aggression. They were dangerous, and their eyes never left her. No matter how hard she tried to ignore it, the fear lingered, like a shadow she couldn't outrun. She couldn't protect herself, not on her own. Her mother was frail, and she had no other, and family to turn to. The burden of surviving on her own weighed heavily on her shoulders. The tension between these two worlds, the world of Arian's luxury and Mira's struggle, grew tighter as days went by. Arian's curiosity turned into something more. He began looking for ways to meet her again, to find out who she really was. He even asked his assistant to do some research on her, but he quickly realized how little he knew about her life. She wasn't in any news stories or business circles. She was just a girl selling vegetables in a small market. But to him, she was becoming something far more than that. Meanwhile, the thugs were becoming bolder. They knew she was alone, and they weren't going to let her get away with standing up to them. One afternoon, as Mira was packing up her stall, she felt a cold chill run down her spine. She turned to see the same group of men, their eyes full of malice, walking toward her. She could tell by the way they moved that they weren't just coming to intimidate her this time. They were ready to cause trouble. Before she could even react, the first man grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward him. "You think you're special just because a CEO stepped in for you," he sneered. "That doesn't mean you can escape us." His grip tightened, and Mira winced in pain. She tried to break free, but his hold was too strong. Panic surged in her chest. This time, there was no one around to help her. The market was almost empty, the late afternoon crowd thinning out. It was just her, the thugs, and the crushing weight of her helplessness. But just as things seemed to spiral out of control, the sound of a car engine roared to life once again. Mira's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Was it him again? The luxury car pulled up, and out stepped Arian. This time he didn't hesitate. Without a word, he marched toward the thugs, his eyes fixed on them like a predator ready to strike. The men hesitated, clearly surprised by his sudden appearance. But Arian wasn't here to back down. He stood tall, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Let her go," he commanded, his tone firm but calm. There was no fear in his eyes, no hesitation, just the quiet assurance of someone who knew their power and wasn't afraid to use it. The thugs exchanged looks, unsure of how to react, but Arian wasn't giving them a choice. He stepped forward, his presence overwhelming. "I said, let her go," he repeated, his gaze narrowing. The man holding Mira's arm quickly released her, his face a mixture of fear and resentment. Arian had more than just wealth. He had influence, and in that moment he made it clear that no one would harm her while he was there. Mira stood frozen, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she tried to process what was happening. The thugs slunk away, muttering curses under their breath, but not daring to challenge Arian any longer. She felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was quickly replaced by confusion. Why was he helping her again? Was he doing this out of pity? Or was there something more? Arian turned to her, his expression softening. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and sincere. Mira looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing this? Why do you care?" Arian paused for a moment, the weight of her question hanging in the air. There was so much he wanted to say, so much he felt, but the words eluded him. He stepped closer, his gaze locking with hers. "Because no one should live in fear," he said quietly, his words lingering between them like a promise. But as the tension hung in the air, neither of them realized just how much this moment would change their lives. There were secrets to uncover, challenges to face, and choices to be made, and this was only the beginning. The days that followed were filled with confusion and new feelings for both Mira and Arian. Mira couldn't shake the encounter from her mind. Each time she tried to push it away, the memory of Arian's protective stance kept coming back. She couldn't understand why someone like him would keep showing up in her life. Someone so far removed from her world. She was just a girl selling vegetables in the market, and he was the CEO of a successful company. The disparity between their lives seemed impossible to bridge. But Arian couldn't ignore what had happened either. His thoughts were consumed by Mira, by her strength, her resilience, and the way she had never asked for help, yet still accepted it. He knew he couldn't just walk away after the second encounter. Something about her felt different, and he had to know more. So, he decided to take a step forward, to do something that was so unlike his usual reserved, calculated self. He invited her to dinner. A simple offer at first, but one that carried so much weight. Mira was hesitant, of course. She knew how out of place she would feel in his world of luxury and polished manners. But something about his invitation made her feel like she had nothing to lose. She agreed, and they met at a quiet restaurant, a place that felt almost like a dream to Mira. The warmth of the room, the soft music, the flickering candlelight, all felt so foreign to her. As they sat across from each other, Arian didn't waste time with small talk. "I want to understand you," he said simply, his gaze steady on hers. "I don't want to be the kind of person who just helps when it's convenient. I want to know you, Mira." Her heart fluttered at the honesty in his voice. She'd heard so many empty words in her life, people promising to help, to care, but never following through. But something about Arian felt different. She saw in his eyes a sincerity that wasn't common in the world she lived in. "Why?" she asked softly, her voice filled with doubt and curiosity. "Why do you care so much?"